If you are currently researching autism because you're newly diagnosed or you suspect you might be autistic, I've got a few tips for you. Someone who is diagnosed autistic almost 5 years ago now and have gone down that rabbit hole. When I started out, I wish someone had told me to look out for people who are not advocates for autistic people, because believe me, there's a lot of them out there. One of them in particular, the field is it's abbreviated as TOM, which is theory of mind. A lot of that research, it has since been challenged by autistic researchers, but it is quite problematic. And look at the people who are involved in that. You will find a lot of the time that they are not autistic. One example I can give you is what is often referred to as the dirty money study, where basically they had neurotypical and autistic people and offered them dirty money, and most of the autistic people turned it down. And rather than concluding something good about autistic people, this is what they said: here we show that ASD individuals are inflexible when following a moral rule. As you're going, you might come across the term Asperger's. Now, it's controversial. We don't use that term anymore. Australia and the US got rid of it in 2013, but it is still around, and there are people like Professor Tony Atwood who talk about it. And there's something to learn from the terminology and the traits associated with it. Essentially, they're talking about autism level 1. So what I'm saying is look into it, but don't use the term or say that you are that or anything of that nature. So with that said, who do we listen to then? I think you know where this is going. The best people are autistic researchers and clinicians. They clearly got our best interests at heart. And you can also tell when you read the studies that that is the case. So that's your top tier. That's number one, most reliable people to look at. But that's not the only people. There are also professors like Professor Tony Atwood, who I mentioned before, who is truly an advocate. You can tell by the way he speaks. He does have a video that's called "Could It Be Asperger's?" As I said earlier, it's worth a look because there's some very valuable information in there. Yeah, and apparently he's not diagnosed as autistic. He seems like he is a bit to me, but I'm not hit one to diagnose someone over the internet. Hi, Editor Clinton here. I need to include a warning as well as to define some terms about what I've just said. When I say researcher, to be specific, I mean academics, scientists, scholars, and people with PhDs. I'm not referring to the average everyday person like myself. I do indicate here in this video that autistic people generally are a safe place for information and advocacy. I did discover today that that isn't entirely true. So do look out for that. There are autistic people out there that are not advocates for autism, believe it or not. The way that you can tell this is when they advocate for a cure for autism or they claim that neurodiversity is a hoax. I dare say these people are suffering as a result of being neurodiverse and or autistic, which is probably what's driving them to speak this way. I'll refer to this video by fellow Australian Jack Den Houting. I'll share the link to the TED Talk that she did. Jack is autistic and has a PhD in autism, so I think she knows what she's talking about. The video is called "Why Everything You Know About Autism Is Wrong." And in that video, Jack states that I am not disabled, the world disables me. There's a lot in that. I definitely agree with what she's saying. You can have a watch of that video and see what you think. So back to the video. So who else can be helpful to us? Well, autistic creators can be really great. Not all of them do, deep dive research, but It doesn't matter, because what they're doing is they're sharing their lived experiences. And the worst thing that I've found about that is it's accurate, right? They're talking about how life is for them, but the only way it can be inaccurate, two things, is if, like many of us, ADHD crossed over with autism, and they're not sure. They think they're talking about the autism trait, but it might be an ADHD trait. That's not that big a deal, but that's just one thing to look out for. The other thing is some of them will get sucked into the stereotypes that are imposed on us by neurotypical people and neurotypical researchers. Things like no empathy. That is absolutely a myth. No emotions. Do I really need to explain that one? And no humour. Now, that is absolutely incorrect. You think about it. Humour relies on flows of logic and understanding it. And that's, once we learn the joke, or we learn what a particular kind of humour is, it absolutely makes sense to us. The only time I could think that someone would claim we don't have humour is that some of us don't get sarcasm, especially when we're young. But it's a skill that we can learn. And sometimes sarcasm, people think that it's obvious when it's not. So good luck with it. I'm here to help if you've got any questions, you need some direction. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a clinician. Like I said, I'm just someone who lived for 46 years and didn't know he was autistic and was pretty much diagnosed by accident. So, yeah, I've had a lot to reflect on. See you around.